This week we're talking about Meet the Press because I happen to watch. I taped Face the Nation, Meet the Press, and This Week with George Snuffleupagus, and I thought that I was going to take a little clips from each one of them to show how shitty they all are. I didn't even get through the whole episode of Meet the Press before I had to stop downloading clips. So here we go. So they were talking about the big IRS scandal. I'm doing this because it's not a scandal, But
it is on Sunday mornings.
So yes, it is on Sunday mornings. And now the only way it's a scandal, by the way, is if Barack Obama had knowledge of it and ordered it. Mm-hmm. That's the only way the IRS thing's a scandal, is if the White House ordered it.
Yeah, somebody doesn't even have to be Obama. Somebody at the White House.
Somebody at the White House.
Right.
That's the only way it's a scandal.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so even though the president did not order the IRS to target conservative groups, nor did he have knowledge of it happening. Here's a genius from the Wall Street Journal. Her name is Kimberly Strassel. Do you know who she is?
I don't know.
Right on point. So she wrote a...
sounds cute, though.
She is adorable.
Yeah.
She is... so she wrote an op-ed, and here's what she had to say. Could you put up that clip? The media and Congress are sleuthing for some hint that Mr. Obama picked up the phone and sicked the tax dog on his enemies. But that's not how things work in post-Watergate Washington. Mr. Obama didn't need to pick up the phone. All he needed to do was exactly what he did do, which was nothing. But let's see what he did do. What's the next slide? Let's see. This is what she says he did do. In full view for 3 years, he publicly suggests that conservative political groups were engaged in nefarious deeds, publicly call out by name political opponents whom he'd like to see harassed, and publicly have his party pressure the IRS to take action. So, the point she is making is that President Obama is guilty of being president. Basically.
Guilty as charged.
The Wall Street Journal doesn't have any proof, but fortunately, it's the Wall Street Journal, and they don't need any proof.
What, is she like an intern? Like, how do you hire her? Who writes that? Can I see the second slide again real quick? Just because, like, the second part where she accuses the president of doing what he did, publicly suggests that conservative political groups were engaged in nefarious deeds. Well, they're conservative political groups. I mean, there's political opponents. What, he's not allowed to mention them by name, ever?
Right.
At any
He's
point?
running against them.
Yes, he's against them.
Was he
He's
allowed
their
to mention?
opponent.
Yeah, that's when and he kept talking about that Romney guy. Yeah, how dare he mention that guy's name?
It's the White House is in a big disadvantage here, Ben, because they're going up against people who don't really care about facts.
Yeah,
it doesn't make a difference. See, even when he doesn't order something, which he didn't, it's like he did it anyway.
Totally. Yeah.
It's just like he did it. So what the? And that gets printed.
And for 3, is she like calling out political opponents and then pressuring the IRS to look at when?
When did he? When he does this with his shoulder, that means investigate Tea Party groups.
Well, the problem is that, as you know, the Wall Street Journal, with its limited budget, they don't get LexisNexis. So she couldn't research to find a quote.
No, she couldn't get a quote of him telling the kind of tacitly giving...
Right, pressuring the IRS to investigate nefarious deeds done by political groups on the conservative side.
So here's this next clip. Here is the guy who actually is responsible for, and was the acting chief of the IRS at the time this happened. His name is Schuler, and he testified in front of Congress. This is from last April 2012. Now this actually is a little scandalous. Let's play it.
We've seen some recent press allegations that the IRS is targeting certain Tea Party groups across the country, requesting what have been described as owner's document request, delaying approval for tax-exempt status. Can you give us assurances that the IRS is not targeting particular groups based on political leanings?
Just let me start by saying yes, I can give you assurances. As you know, we pride ourselves on being a non-political, nonpartisan organization. There's absolutely no targeting.
Okay, so we know that there was targeting. That's the guy who was the head of the IRS at the time. He lied to Congress about it. And guess what he is? He's known as a Bush appointee. He's a Republican and a Bush appointee, which is that's the big facts here, because
you'd think it get mentioned every now and then.
Yes, what they're implying is that Barack Obama somehow pressured the IRS, a Bush appointee, to do his dirty work for him.
Seems unlikely.
And he did it, and he kept his mouth shut about it too, because he likes that Kenyan Muslim president so much.
Yeah, totally. As so many of the Bush people do. I like when that guy, as he's talking there, and he says, as you know, we pride ourselves on being a...
Yes.
Like politically independent, politically, nonpartisan. Like he couldn't.
He had to look.
Yeah, he had to look like, oh, what's my talking
What
point?
am I again?
What am I again? Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, oh, Jesus, I have ace king. Yeah.
So that's the guy who was responsible. He lied to Congress about it. And what happened? They fired his successor. What's the problem?
Responsible government.
That is how Obama proved he was serious about punishing those responsible, by firing someone who wasn't responsible.
It's the way to do it. Yeah. It's the way to get to the bottom of the situation.